everybody, I have read tons of business plans by startups, and I can tell you that over 99% of them have all been useless. People talking about things they have no way of knowing, looking at industries from the outside in instead of being on the inside, and just a waste of time. And for entrepreneurs that are doing this and putting a lot of effort into it, you're not fooling anyone. Welcome to Startup Concepts. My name is Bill, the company's expert, and in this show, I give you tips for how to succeed as an entrepreneur, how to start business, talking about general business tips, and sharing some of my knowledge being a mentor and a previous entrepreneur and a former CEO in what works and what doesn't. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why spending time on a business plan, if you're doing a startup or you're doing a small business, is essentially a waste of time, okay? Let's dive in. Now, everything I'm about to say in this video applies to traditional business plans, which hopefully you know what I'm talking about. They're standard documents. They start with an executive summary, and they include things like report and plan for the market, a market assessment, and a financial projection, and a product description, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm talking about those, and I'm also talking about more modern creations, things like pitch decks and things like this. Whatever the format of your business plan is immaterial. It's the entire idea, okay? Now, number one is that spending time on a detailed business plan is a waste of time and effort, okay? When you start out in a business, okay, in the beginning, you need to do rather than plan, okay? I've been a mentor for startups, people that they form a partnership, they plan to do this, and then they spend 6 months working, and then after 6 months, they've created a plan. And I asked them, I'm like, are you sure this is the best use of your time and effort? Because it doesn't seem to me like you can really pull this off. If all you have to show for something is a plan and you haven't actually done anything, to me, that's a big red flag, and I'm not the only one. When you're an entrepreneur is somebody who does things, okay? Don't be fooled by corporate culture, especially large organization culture, where usually you have a lot of people sitting in offices, sending emails to each other and writing reports, okay? Don't be fooled by that. When you're in a small business and you're an entrepreneur, you don't write reports. You don't worry about documentation. You get things done, okay? And if you don't realize this, you're going to be in for a little bit of a shock, okay? If you're starting your own business and you're trying to do this, you need to achieve things. You need to accomplish things. You need to create things. You need to sell things. You need to have something to show for it, more than just a plan, okay? So number one reason is that it's a misuse of time to worry about detailed plans, especially when you're not doing anything. You need to put your effort into doing stuff. Okay. Number 2, I'll see if I can get the finger gestures right in this. Now, in certain places in the world, you're not allowed to do this way or this way, so don't get offended. Okay. Number 2, validation. Okay. It's kind of a buzzword nowadays for people to talk about validating an idea. Okay. This word came in the 90s and it's been growing and growing and growing ever since. And now people keep throwing it around. And that word can mean almost anything you want it to mean. Okay. It can involve essentially making a plan and not doing anything. And that's a big danger. Okay. This idea that you have to validate, okay, that means more than planning. That means actually going out and doing something, going out and connecting with customers, going out and creating a product, going out and offering a service, okay? The real validation, the one true way of validating if something is going to work is to actually create a product or service and sell it. And only after you've done that can you say with any certainty that you will be able to create this thing and sell it, okay? Anything short of actually doing it is open to interpretation, okay? That's something that not too many people understand, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, okay? In the very beginning, a very common trait for a lot of would-be entrepreneurs is to think they know how something works because it is logical to them that it works that way. That is an entirely different thing from actually going out and doing it. Once you go out and try and do something, a lot of times you realize that it doesn't work the way you think it works. Okay, that's why we need validation. So one of the big problems with business plans is that a lot of the ideas and projections put forth in it are not validated. They're people taking a wild guess at how they think it might work rather than taking the trouble to actually see how it does work. Okay, and that's the type of work you got to be doing. Okay, 99% of your time, or percent of the time, your plans will not work. They will need tweaking, and that's an understatement. Usually, your first idea fails. Your second idea fails. Your third idea fails. Sometimes your fourth idea fails. Your fifth idea, if you last that long, probably starts to go somewhere, okay? And it's this iterative process that we discover how to do something that will work, especially in entrepreneurship when a lot of times we're blazing a trail. We're doing something that hasn't been done exactly that way before, okay? Even if you're doing something traditional like starting a restaurant, okay? No one has placed that type of restaurant in that exact location before. And if they have, they haven't done it in the world today with the market what it is now. So in some ways, you will always be blazing a trail, okay? And for that reason, you will always have to validate, okay? So validate your ideas rather than writing down detailed plans of projections that you really don't know if you're talking about it correctly. Go and test the waters and actually accomplish something. Okay. Number 3, you need to self-fund your business. Okay. This is something I advocate for, with the exception of a few startups, okay, that are highly specialized cases. These are companies that would expect absolutely exponential growth. They would start the company this big, and within 2 years, it would be this big. Okay. That's not normal. That's a very exceptional case. If you're in Silicon Valley, if you're in the tech sector, you're doing software, you're doing online web services and things like this, that may be possible, but for everybody else, okay, it's not going to work like that. And for that reason, a lot of people start out with this idea that they're going to need investment right off the hop, okay? In most cases, they won't be able to get it, okay? Beyond a few government grants and loans, you won't be able to get that, okay? And usually, of the people who get those, they spend the money, but because they haven't validated anything and haven't done anything, they never make the money back, and that's a big problem. So the way to start businesses that have a much higher chance of succeeding is to self-finance, to self-fund, bootstrap, okay? And how do you do this? Well, you don't do it by making a plan. You do it by actually creating a product or service and being able to sell it. So instead of spending your time on planning, you've got to actually do this type of activity, okay? Now, a common counter question that people come back to me and with this objection and say, well, that's just not possible. I'm trying to create a product. And in order to create that product, I need this much startup capital that I don't have. Okay, so I'm going to need investment to get this thing off the ground, right? I say, yes, that makes quite a bit of sense. Okay, here's how you do it. Instead of starting with that, okay, let's call that phase 3. Phases 1 and 2 are things that you can do now, something that you can create by yourself now, using what you have, and being able to sell yourself and get money coming in now, which will enable a phase 2, or you could maybe go straight to phase 3, depending on how this is structured. But you need to start off with something you can do now, okay? When people hear this, a lot of times they're shocked. They think, well, that's not how startups work. Usually you go and you get investment and you're starting with millions of dollars. And it's like, no, that's not how you start it. What this will achieve, first of all, is you're actually doing something, okay? So for a start, you're in business, okay? You're creating something, and then the process of trying to sell it and connecting with that market yourself, okay? You start the work of understanding your customer. if you're going to get your original plan off the ground, phase 3, okay, you're going to need to understand your customers. You're going to need to have a relationship with them. You're going to need to understand what makes them tick. You're going to need to understand their behavior, et cetera, et cetera. And until you do that, all of your projections are, they're not valid. They're just guesswork. Usually they don't work the way people project. So you have to put the time in to learn that market, learn those customers, and learn your product, learn the industry, learn how that business works. Okay, usually doesn't work the way it looks like it works from the outside. And you're starting that with phase 1. And if you could not go $100,000 in debt that you're personally responsible for to do phase 1, that would be a way to succeed. That's usually the kiss of death for a lot of startups. They blow all their cash on their first guess, a random stab in the dark of what to do. And the odds are is that it fails. And if it fails and leaves you with a $100,000 bill that you have to pay, that pretty much kills any future startup activity that you might do. Okay, so the way to do it is to put the time in and do baby steps and start with what you can do now. Now, the great thing about services is the nature of services is that generally speaking, they're comparatively cheap to do as opposed to products. So a lot of companies that want to start with products, my recommendation is you start with services, okay? And instead of making this grand plan of how you're going to launch a product in one go, start focusing on your phase 1, which is your services. Put the time into getting direct relationships with customers and getting some money to come in the door. That is far more useful than any business plan that is backed up by economic data. Let's put it that way, okay? So that would be my third reason, self-fund, okay? And if you're self-funding, you don't need a lot of plans. You don't need to convince investors. This is the way the majority of businesses are started. And you don't need fancy business plans to convince would-be investors. Okay, number 4, a startup it's a stab in the dark, okay? It's a journey to understand the market. And you need to start that journey because the bottom line is that any projections you put into a business plan that you put in front of an investor, the investor is always going to be able to come back and say, well, prove that that's correct. You know, if you state some statistic, they'll always be able to challenge you on it. And if you haven't done anything, and if you haven't tried anything firsthand, you will never be able to back up anything really. Which leads me to my 5th reason, and that is that if you are trying to get investment and you feel that a comprehensive business plan is your tool to get that investment, okay? A lot of times you're missing the point. Investors already understand the industry. They already understand the business. What they don't understand, and what the big question mark for them is you. Okay, is your capability. That's the number one thing that you have to demonstrate for any investor to feel that you are a risk they want to take. Okay, it's not about proving that a idea is valid by backing it up with economic data. That's not what investors care about. They care about, are you capable enough that they can give you money and you're the one to do this. Okay, and if you haven't done anything, you will never be able to prove that. Okay, the way to do it is to be able to accomplish things, and then you can validate yourself and say, like, look, I've done this. I've already found the customers. I've already released a product or service. I've already managed to sell it. I'm bringing in this amount of money, and I've already managed to. I've already succeeded in managing my costs and my operations so that I'm making this kind of return on it. Okay, so that's my track record. So I'm demonstrating without any possible doubt that I'm capable of making this happen. And that's when you get a fighting chance of getting investors to come in and side with you. Okay? So roughly, those are 5 reasons why spending a ton of time on planning as a way to start a business when you first start is a waste of time. Don't worry about documenting things. Don't worry about trying to persuade people of some grandiose plan you have. Start doing things immediately. And once you do that, the necessity for a detailed plan kind of falls away because you're making it happen. And if you're doing it correctly, you're already succeeding. And that's how you can bootstrap yourself. And that's how you can get into the business you want to get and do the things you want to do successfully. And when you do that, you're not having a bunch of investors, whether they're giving you equity financing or debt financing, basically eating your lunch, taking all your profits. Okay. So that's my 2 cents on business plans. That's why a lot of young entrepreneurs that have come to me, and all they've spent their time on is this grandiose plan, that's backed up by economic data, but it's backed up by absolutely no actions whatsoever. That's the reason they fail. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you so much for listening this long. I'm interested in what you think. So leave a comment and subscribe to this channel for more in this series, Startup Concepts. Also, check out my second YouTube channel where I give a lot of commentary videos on things that are happening in the world of business and in the news at the moment, as well as going into how to get a job and a few other general business topics. So link in description to both of those. Thank you so much. You're awesome. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.